Rabbi. Joining us from Yerushalayim is Rav Nason Maimon. He's a mashpia, senior lecturer in Breslov. He's a Talmud, and it says a son-in-law of Rav Tzvi Aryeh Rosenfeld, the famous mashpia of Breslov. Welcome, Rav Nason.
Thank you.
So, Rav Nason, tell us about, Rav Nachman's Patira and Uman, the yearly going there for Rosh Hashanah, the reason for it, etc.
Rabbi Nachman was a great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and he lived a relatively short life, 38 years. The last 8 years of his life, he lived in Breslov. That's why his Hasidim are called Breslover Hasidim. When he came to the city of Breslov, when he was 30 years old, the story, he made kiddush, the wine spilled, they poured another wine, and he said, we've crowned this city as our city. From now on, my students will be known as Breslover Hasidim. But what happened was, around that time, he had been traveling in Ukraine, and he went through the city of Uman, and he came to a site where there had been a massacre 3 years before he was born. There was a major massacre at the time. The Haidamaks and the Cossacks were roaming Ukraine, and they murdered tens of thousands of Yidden everywhere, and Uman was a fortified city. So people from surrounding areas came there, and the Count, who was Count Bataki, who was in charge of Uman, was favorable to the Jews. And he said they can be there, he'll protect them, he won't open the city to these guys. And at one point they tricked him. These Cossacks, Haidamaks, tricked him. He let them in, and they ended up murdering 30,000 Jews there. They set up what was called a schwarze kipa, a black canopy that was like half the height of a person, and they put a cross in front of it. And they said, whoever goes under, whoever bows to the cross lives. Whoever doesn't, we're going to hack to death. And this went on for 3 days. They murdered 30,000 men, women, children refused to bow to the cross. No one bowed. And they ended up, there were Yidden that hid out in a cave outside the city, and they came back in afterwards. They saw this mass, they saw what had happened. They dug these 2 gigantic ditches in which they buried keverachim, in which they buried the remains of these 30,000 kedoshim. And Rabbi Nachman was passing through there when he was 30 years old, and he stopped in that location, and he said this would be a very good place to remain. And then he went weiter, he went further. And then 8 years later, there were a series of fires in several cities, in Nemirov, in Breslov, and on one Friday night, his house burned down. Rabbi Nachman's house burned down. That Sunday morning, he got an invitation. He was looking into it before, the possibility of going to Uman. But on Sunday morning, an invitation arrived that the city is welcoming him. The people in the city, the Yidden, are welcoming him. And he ended up traveling there and spending the last 5-6 months of his life there. From Iyar till Chai Tishrei, Palamid Sukkot. And he spoke a lot about that cemetery, about the Kiddush Hashem that was there, and that was one of the main reasons why he chose to be buried there. Among these Kiddushim, these Yidden who were given a choice to bow to the cross and live or not, and they all refused. And prior to that, even as soon as he started being Makar, doing outreach, being Makar people, he always emphasized that Rosh Hashanah is the most important time to come to him. He said he can do more for his students on Rosh Hashanah than any other time of the year. And he gave some reasons, he mentioned some factors about it, and he said if anybody has any questions about this, so let them have another question on me. It's not, he wasn't to spoil, he said this is still super, the most important. He said, Congressus and then is Gornit Fahan. There's nothing more important than this, than coming to me for Rosh Hashanah. And he spoke about this also a few days before he passed away, when he was already very sick. He was suffering from tuberculosis the last 3 years of his life, and spitting up blood those last days. And on that Erev Rosh Hashanah, his final Rosh Hashanah, he spoke about how important it is to be with him for Rosh Hashanah. So his students understood that he wasn't just referring during his lifetime, but he meant also afterwards. And his main Talmud, Rav Nason, who wrote all of his Sfarim, he and all the other major Talmidim all continued to go to his kever on Erev Rosh Hashanah and to make sure to daven together close by in a shul for Rosh Hashanah.
Now, what do you think of this year? Should Breslov Hasidim go to Uman or not?
It's a big question that's going around the world now. There are some different opinions on it. The facts are that over the past 6 months, people are going and coming there every day. and there are videos of people there and coming back. Baruch Hashem, no one yet has been harmed in any way. Not traveling there, not in Uman, and not on the way back.
Have there been bombs? Have there been bombs in Uman? Is it dangerous?
Not that I know of. The world is a dangerous place. The Gemara says, Kol hadrochen b'chetzkas sakana. All travel is dangerous. And Ukraine has a special situation now with Russia, no question about it. However, in that part of Ukraine, we know, for example, I live in Eretz Yisrael. There are the people that live in the north and the south that most people assume are in a much more dangerous location than those of us that live in Yerushalayim or Beit Shemesh. So there's a difference for sure, but Baruch Hashem, so far, no one has been harmed. Many people I know are planning on going for Rosh Hashanah, and there are those that are planning on not going. There are those that are concerned and are choosing not to go.
What is your opinion?
Right now, I'm hoping to be able to go, Mitzvah Hashem. I hope if things don't get any worse, I'm hoping to be able to go here, Mitzvah Hashem.
Could you explain to me, an outsider, the proudest part of Reb Nachman is that he was an enkin of the Baal Shem. So for the Baal Shem's caver, some people go, and to Uman, tens of thousands of people go. Isn't that counterintuitive?
I'll answer your question in the typical Jewish way with a question. Can you explain to me why Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 Talmidim at one point? They left the world, and he continued teaching. So he might have had 40, 50,000 Talmidim during his lifetime, and there are tens of people that visit his kever throughout the year. His student, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was his student, who's buried in Miron, had between 500,000 and 750,000 people visiting his kever on Lag BaOmer, pre-corona. And post-corona, there are thousands of people going there regularly. Every Shabbos in Miron.
I'll answer that question. I'll answer that question. I think people are very interested in nisim and moifsim and niflois. So Rebbe is associated with that, and Rebbe Akiva isn't. That's because people like miracle workers. Whereas the Baal Shem was clearly as big as a miracle worker as Reb Nachman was. So that answer wouldn't apply here.
That's one aspect of it, but I'll give you the answer. There was a Rebbe Yadler who was not a Breslov Chassid. He was known as a Maggid of Yerushalayim years ago, 30, 40 years ago, and he came to Uman for Rosh Hashanah once, and somebody saw him and they asked him, "What are you doing here? You're not a Breslover. What are you doing here? You're in Eretz Yisrael. There are Kvarim at Yatamar Samapela. You have a..." So he said, I'll answer your question. He said, "Erhot Sigezogt. Rabbi Nachman gave a guarantee. They didn't. Avram Avinu did not say, 'Come to my kever, and I'll do everything I possibly can to help you. If I have to, I'll pull you out with your payas from Gehenna.'"
Yeah, but if Rabbi Yardel was here, I would respond to him. I would say, it doesn't say any place, Bavli or Shalmi Sefras or Efta, that somebody's empowered to give that guarantee. Just
really?
Because yeah.
Excuse me, are you a Baki in Bavli, Yerushalmi, Safra, Sifri?
Enough to make that statement.
That word enough, excuse me, is not so valid.
Okay.
It says in Masechta Soitra Daf Yud Daled Amid Beis that one of the reasons why we don't know where Moshe Rabbeinu's kever is today is because if we did know, we would go there and we would say to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Get up and defend us like you did during your lifetime."
But you can't. But Moshe, hello. You're selling to apples to oranges. Moshe was the one. The Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to make the whole Klal Yisrael, right? By the thing, he said, "I'll make you the entire Klal Yisrael." He took them out of Mitzvah. He matzal all of Klal Yisrael. You can't take every tzaddik from the last 500 years and say he could give a guarantee to do what Moshe could do. He was the one. He was Moshe Reya Mehemna. Nobody else is called Reya Mehemna. So you can't compare it. You're going to say your local tzaddik on the corner is going to say, "I could come to my cave, I'll do it." You can't compare that to Moshe.
The answer is the local tzaddik on the corner can't say that, but the Zohar Kodesh says, "Moshe Isa b'chol dara."
The Gemara says that. Chol Talmud Chacham, Moshe, the Gemara says, right? But it doesn't mean every Talmud Chacham could do it. Every Talmud Chacham could say, "If you come to my cave, I could save everything." Everything that says about Moshe Reya Mehem, no, every Talmud Chacham. Ikri Moshe means he has a spark of Moshe. Every Talmud Chacham. Does that mean every Talmud Chacham could make the guarantee that Moshe could make?
No. But here again, not every Talmud Chacham said this. The Baal Shem Tov did not say this.
He wasn't empowered to say it, because he wasn't empowered to say it.
Excuse me. To be an authority as to what the Baal Shem Tov was empowered to do.
I'm asking you to bring a raya. You're Magachia, bring a raya. Bring a raya that a Talmud Chacham or a tzaddik could make guarantees that survive for generations to do nisim v'niflois that are l'mayla miderech hateva. Bring any makar for such a thing. Bring a Tana who said, I guarantee for the rest of time this, and a Moira who said this. Somebody you have just 63 mesechtas of Tanaim. Bring me a raya from a single makar of a Tana and a Moira who said, for the rest of time, if you do this, I guarantee it. Bring one raya.
Sure. Very simple. There's a Tana called Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai in Masechta Sukkah. Yochel ani liftor es kol ha'olam kulay min adin miyoim shenivresi adoto ve'omole Elazar b'ni imi miyoim shenivra ha'olam v'ad achshav ve'omole Yosem ben Uzio imanu miyoim shenivra ha'olam ad soifoi. You hear that?
Yes, you say you have a right.
Unfortunately, there are people who are very quick to say it's not in Shas, it's not in my Rebbe, Aryeh Rosenfeld. Let me finish, please. Okay. He said that he had that problem once, that there were people who would say the Rambam says differently, and he was surprised a little bit. And then he decided one summer to do the Rambam. He learned the Rambam, the entire Rambam. And he said the next time somebody told him the Rambam says different, he said maybe it's in your Rambam, not mine. So when people say it is in Shas or it's not in Shas, they better be very, very sure of what they're talking about, because the Gemara speaks talking about Sakona. Kolei ben Yifuna, we had the Meraglim. The Meraglim were superstars. Each Shevet gave its best foot forward. They sent their representatives to check out Eretz Yisrael. 10 of them failed, and 2 of them succeeded. The difference between the 10 and the 2 were one thing, a connection to a tzaddik. Yeshua had a connection to Moshe Rabbeinu, where Moshe Rabbeinu was mispalel for him. Kol Yoshiach HaMe'atzas Meraglim, and Kolei ben Yifuna went to the most dangerous place in Eretz Yisrael. Then and now, he went to Hebron. So the Zohar Kodesh says, how could he do that? There's a halacha. You're not allowed to go to a Mokum Sakana. So the Zohar Kodesh says he understood, you're right, he understood that to go there was dangerous. Not to go there was more dangerous. And we see he was right. Had he not gone there, he would have been with the Meraglim. There would have been 11 Meraglim. Maybe we would have had a Tisha B'Av and an Isru Chad. Because there was only 10 Meraglim, we only have Tisha B'Av. We only had 2 Botei Mikdashes destroyed. And these 2, Yoshua, who had a kesher to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Kolei ben Yifuna, who went to be mispalel by the Moras HaMatera, those 2 were saved.
The Gemara says that a tzaddik could pater himself from the din. He could pater the whole world from the din. He could pater the whole world till the end of time from the din. That's what the Rebbe said. Not unlike Moshe Rabbeinu, who if he would have brought the Yidden straight into Eretz Yisrael, it would have been the Gula Hasidah, right? What we don't find is a tzaddik saying, come to me after my death, and I will be able to help whoever comes to my keva after my death forever. That doesn't say anywhere. But it
says everywhere. Gedolim tzaddikim b'misosom yosim. One of the yesodus of Yiddishkeit is that tzaddikim are much greater after their passing than during their lifetime.
Notwithstanding Gedolim yosef tzaddikim, it doesn't have a case where it says anywhere that a tzaddik la'acha misasei, if you go to his keva or otherwise, could guarantee for people for forever. That doesn't say. It says by the Avis, you see that Kalev Wednesday was misspelled by the Avis, but you don't see that anywhere that a tzaddik should say, come to my grave and I'll guarantee you my kaver and I'll guarantee you anything. Even in the case of Rajbi, that was the Chayav.
Exactly. Right? So in this side,
it's a whole new idea that coming to a tzaddik who's saying, after my death, come to my grave and I guarantee you, is a new concept that is not brought anywhere in Chazal.
Correct.
Okay, so
just like there are new concepts that are brought in the Mishnah Berurah in every sefer that are not mentioned in other places. That's not the anti-Torah.
But usually new concepts means that there are developments, there are changes, right? The world is constantly changing, so halacha has to adapt to it. But a tzaddik's grave has been around since Adam Arishan, and nobody said these words since Adam Arishan except for Rav Nachman. And I just would ask you have to bring a raya from Chazal that such a thing could exist. Just like you say, like the Mishnah Berurah brings a riot, there's halachas, right?
Certain things he brings right. Certain things he was an authority to be able to say what he needed to say. There's no question. The Shloah Kodesh says that there are certain people that when on Matan Torah, only the first two commandments we heard from Hashem directly, right? Only Anoich v'Layilcha mi pigvura nemra, right?
Right.
The other 611 we heard from Moshe Rabbeinu, right?
Right.
Torah tzivalanu Moshe. So there are some big geniuses who say you can't compare in any way what I heard directly from Hashem to what I heard from a human being. I mean, with all due respect to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? So the Shloah Kodesh is wrong. That's why the Gemara uses the Lashon mi pigvura, because mi pigvura is bigematria Moshe, to show that as far as we are concerned, what we hear from Moshe Rabbeinu and what we hear from Hashem is exactly the same. The mitzvah of Shabbos is not one iota less than Anochi Hashem Alikecha. So the Shloah Kodesh says, but there are wise guys today that are going to say, oh, if I were living the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua would have to buy 3 pairs of sneakers to keep up with me. I would be his closest. But today, what do you have today? I mean, Reb Nachman, he was 200. These are nothing compared to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then zero. So he says, for those wise guys, we have a term midorabonon. There's midoraisa and there's midorabonon. And the term midorabonon includes the Gemara, it includes the Shulchan Aruch, it includes the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, is also included in midorabonon. And he says midorabonon is bigematria mipigvura also. So that a person who has
there's a mitzvah of Leisasser. There's a mitzvah of Leisasser. What do you need? What do you need a shalah? It's Xeris Leisasser. It's and it's last week's parsha. From whom? From Advarim Asher Yerucha, from Chazal.
Exactly. Who are the Chazal? Who are Chazal?
So they have
is Rabbi Nachman Chazal? Right.
It says
so Asher Yerucha means even today's Gedolim. If we have people, if a person recognizes somebody today as a Godel, and the Godel today says, come to my grave, or don't come to my grave, you better make sure to listen. Better make sure to listen to what he says, because he's not joking. If it was Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Zechet Tzaddik Livrocha, or whoever it was, any of the real Gedolei Yisrael, if Rabbi Nachman said this, he wasn't a liar, and he wasn't somebody who exaggerated. Tens of thousands of people that have been choizer b'tshuva thanks to this individual. There are tens of thousands of people that you and I see in America, in South Africa, all over the world. Guys come with earrings and this, that, and walk out with citrus and tefillin. And people who are some of them are getting smicha, becoming rabbanim.
So kind of, your understanding of Leisasser is any Moira has a right to be mechadish anything in Torah because of Leisasser. So Reb Nachman was able to say something that nobody before him ever said, or anybody after him ever said, that come to my keva, and I guarantee you, and that is from the din of Leisasser.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, why wouldn't they bring Reb Nachman to Eretz Yisrael?
Good question. This question came up in 1979 when the Russian government, in their 5-year plan, made it known that they're taking down all of these small houses around where Rabbi Nachman is buried, and they're putting up these 9-story apartment buildings. If you go there today, you'll see those buildings there. And they said, we cannot guarantee the safety of this place. So either take it out of here, otherwise we don't know. So there was a deal at the time in Yerushalayim, and poskim were consulted. I believe Rabbi Yashiv, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the leading poskim here, who said that since there was no condition set at the time of burial, that this is temporary, and Rabbi Nachman did make it clear that he wanted to be buried specifically there, we have to do whatever we can to get it to be able to stay there. If we see them coming in with bulldozers, if you have no choice, then you have to take it out. And during that time, there was an incredible story that took place at the time where the President of the United States at the time, Jimmy Carter, and Brezhnev were meeting in Vienna for the first time since Cold War. And this issue was presented at that meeting. And the Kremlin came back saying, we are going ahead and putting up those apartment buildings. However, it's been documented on Belinsky Street number 1, there's an important shrine that will not be destroyed. Rabbi Pinchas Teitz from Elizabeth, New Jersey, was involved at the time. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was involved. There were a number of people that were involved that helped that mission succeed. So from that time, now there were people that attempted to do this. About 20 years ago, there were 2 young men who took it on their own. They part of a small fringe group that think that this is a great idea. Bring them to Eretz Yisrael. We'll have millions of people coming, and we'll put them on all kinds of locations. And they actually went to the house next door and started digging underneath to try to dig them out. And the police caught them, and it was in all the newspapers at the time. It was in the Jerusalem Post here, and Eretz Yisrael, etc. And afterwards, there was steel and cement put in that I think even if the Russians, chas v'shalom, were to bomb your location, everything else in that location, I don't think this location on a physical level would be harmed in any way, based on the amount of steel and cement that was put in to ensure that nobody would attempt that again.
But the Pais can bring it's more in Shulchan Aruch that Shulchan Aruch says that the biggest chus is to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Why wouldn't
to be moved? A person who's buried in a different location.
So it says Pinay at question. Yes, so the Pinay at Sam is to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Shulchan Aruch says in Shin Samach Gimel that you do. Why? Because the kipa admasei amai. Why wouldn't you? And Yerushalayim has more martyrs than Uman at the head, right? So why wouldn't you want to move him to Yerushalayim?
A number of answers. Number one, because he said he wanted to remain there, and he said he gave some reasons for it, and he said he's not mentioning all the reasons. And number two, the Zohar Kodesh speaks about why is Moshe Rabbeinu not in Eretz Yisrael?
Well, he's in Evel Yarden, which has a Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. He's in Evel Yarden, which has a Kedushas Eretz Yisrael.
But the Zohar Kodesh said, Rabbi Nachman writes that the kever of a tzaddik, he spoke about the kever of the Baal Shem Tov, and he said the kever of a tzaddik has the Kiddush of Eretz. There's a pasuk, Tzadikim Yirshu Eretz, that the place of the tzaddik acquires the Kiddush of Eretz Yisrael. That's a bechina of it. But
I understand, but it says every shul has a Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, right?
To a degree, in different degrees.
So we understand that understand that Yerushalayim itself has a bigger Kiddush than a shul. Right? So
yes.
it's like it's Ken. So the Shulchan Aruch says you should bring them to Eretz Yisrael, and they bring, if they can bring tzaddikim, they do. Let's talk about this Paiskim. The Ralbach talks about bringing, Talmidei Chachamim to Eretz Yisrael. He says you absolutely should do it. Even he says if they wanted to be buried in Chutz La'aretz, but they didn't expressly say they don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why wouldn't we follow that halacha?
There's a number of facts. Number one, there was an attempt made to move the Vilna Goyim.
Okay.
And people that attempted it got hurt in the process, and they got the message that wasn't the right thing to do, and they stopped. There were several tzaddikim.
So they moved the Chida. They moved the Chida to Eretz Yisrael. They moved Rebbe Menachem Zemba to Eretz Yisrael. They moved Rebbe Shapiro to Eretz Yisrael, right? Sure. And Shulchan Aruch says you could be moved to Eretz Yisrael.
I live in Yerushalayim, and because the Chita was moved, there are not that many people that visit. I go to Har Menuchos almost weekly, generally weekly at least, where the Chita is buried, and I've been there many times. And it's not that popular a place. It's not visited by that many people.
Hello, nothing's popular. There's just a few people who became popular. Like you said, Rebbe Akiva is not popular, or Rebbe is popular.
Exactly.
So you say if they brought Rebbe Nachman to Eretz Yisrael, it wouldn't be popular anymore?
No, I say that he mentioned this when he spoke about his burial. He mentioned that he thought he might want to go to Eretz Yisrael, but there were two reasons why he said he did not. He said, number one, he was afraid he wouldn't make it there alive, and he said, number two, if I would be in Eretz Yisrael, people wouldn't be metapel with my kever that much. He said those words, and he said to his Talmidim.
And where is that brought? Where is that brought?
The Sefer Chayim Oharan, which was written by his Talmud Rav Nason, the one who he said.
Because I have the quote from. Yes, I have the quote from. Interesting. The quote that I have from him is a little bit different. He said he thought this is from Isa Bergman, bringing from Rav Nason's Yemei Maharanat. He said he told many people he thought Uman was a good place to be buried because of the many martyrs that are there, the many Kedoshim that are there. That's why he moved to Uman a half a year before his passing. He didn't mention Eretz Yisrael in this writing from Rav Nason.
He's only quoting part of the discussion. Yemei Maharanat is an autobiography of Rav Nason.
Right.
Chayim Oharan is where Rav Nason elaborates much more on this.
And over there he said he does not want to go to Eretz Yisrael.
He said that there were reasons why he thought he wanted to go, but in the end he decided he does not, for two reasons. Number one, he was afraid he wouldn't survive the trip. He had been to Eretz Yisrael once, but now he was sick already for 2.5 years.
Well, I understand. This is not relevant today. Yeah.
Number two, he said, because if he'll be in Eretz Yisrael, people will not be involved with his kever. I'm quoting the Sefer Chayim Oharan.
Okay, in that case.
Today in Uman.
In that case, he's saying Beferish she didn't want to.
Correct.
Even though, we do have, when they went to Reb Moshe during that whole Ma'aser, Reb Moshe said, why don't they move him to Eretz Yisrael? Which is interesting.
Not they went. I went. My Rebbe, Reb Michal Dorfman, and I were the people who went to see Reb Moshe Feinstein in his shul. Let me quote, because I was there. He said it to me. He said maybe it would be an idea, when Reb Michal explained to him the crisis, the problem, that what the Russians are saying, he said, Efshe voltes gewen an Eitzem and bring a kind of Israel. So Reb Michal said to him, but his Talmud Muvak, Reb Nosson, writes Beferish that this is a place that was designated for him, Misheshis Mebereshis, and that he told us some of the reasons why he wanted to be buried among these 30,000 Kedoshim. And he spoke a little bit more, and then Reb Moshe fought for a minute or two. I was standing there, I'll never forget it. He fought for a minute or two, and then he said, Oy bazoi, so werden ausgeführt der Rotzen von der Heilige Tzaddik. If that's the case, then let the holy will of Rabbi Nachman be fulfilled. Whatever he wants, that's what should be. He said it once, and then we walked away from him. We went to our seats. This was after davening. And then we went to put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. Then when Rabbi Moshe was leaving the shul, he walked past us. He sat in the middle. He walked past us about 10 feet. He turned around and came back again. And he told my Rebbe, Rabbi Michal Zalman, the Eibishter soll helfen, soll werden ausgeführt, der Rotzen von der Heilige Tzaddik. And Hashem helped that his will of the Holy Tzaddik should be fulfilled.
Can I ask you, you go to Uman a lot, right?
I go and I should.
Do you go to the Shach, to the Taz, to the Kivega? Have you ever been to them?
No, I've been to other Kram of Tzadikim. I've been I go to
you learn Shulchan Aruch
once a week.
The Shach isn't far from there. The Taz isn't far from there. The Tzais isn't far from there. The Nesivos isn't far from there. Why don't you go to those?
The answer is number one. I have a personal connection. I've been learning Rabbi Nachman's Forum for 50 years.
You certainly learn Shulchan Aruch, don't you?
The Beis Yosef, let's say. I've been to the Beis Yosef kever many times. Hundreds of Breslovers that I know have been to the Ramah. I haven't been Zocher. If I had the opportunity to go, I go to, in Sas, I go to the Beis Yosef. I go to other kivrei tzadikim also.
Have you been to Rashi's kever?
No, I've never been to France yet.
I'm saying, do you learn Rashi as much as you learn Likutei Moharan?
I do, but again, there's a concept. There is a concept. I've heard this, that a person goes to the kever of Rabbi Akiva to be mispas. If we have Rabbi Akiva, let's say, why would we go to Rabbi Moshe? Why are they Talmidim of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein who go to Rabbi Moshe? You're in Eretz Yisrael already. A few miles away, you can go to Rabbi Akiva. You know what Rabbi Moshe is compared to Rabbi Akiva? You know what you're talking about? So one of my rabbis explained there's a big difference between someone who you have a personal kesher with. There's a concept of my doctor. My doctor has my file. He has all the information on me. He knows everything about me. So that even though I do go to Rabbi Akiva, I go to many tzaddikim, but there's a concept of my doctor, my Rebbe, who I have a very, very personal kesher with. And I believe that he has a kesher with whoever who needs to have a kesher in order that the tefillah should get to where they need to get to. That's why I see when I go to Hamanuchos, I see people going to Reb Moshe and to other great tzaddikim, to Rabban Kotler, to Rebbe, to all. Person would say you're in Eretz Yisrael. It's a bush and a chepa. What are you making a joke here? You have Tanoim and Amoraim here. You're going to Rabbonim that maybe they're achroinim. The answer is it's not a busha. If he was your Rebbe, your personal Rebbe, it's extreme. You can poil more sometimes by him than you can poil by Reb Shimei Choy.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Reb Maimon. Okay?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Joining us from Yerushalayim is Rabbi Yechiel Goldhaber. He's a Mechaber Sfarim,